indeed. Well, here at the Parliament, of course, it's historic tradition, and it's one of the things that we look on with most interest. Most of the ceremonies we have, in every session of Parliament, it is opened by the Governor General. So it is today is a day that the Governor General really gets to perform a lot
Yes.
of his or
Ceremony.
her duties and all the pageantry that's associated
Or the
with
pomp,
it.
as you
Yes,
say.
the pomp and pageantry, absolutely. And in the case of this new session, of course, the first thing that would happen, the election of the Speaker, and of course, the President of the Senate and their deputies. And the Clerk of Parliament, who's Mr. Andrew Augustine, he's the one that would preside until the official election of these representatives have taken place. In our case, the Senate President designate is Dr. Decima Williams, and in the case of the House of Representatives, the Speaker designate is Basilio Cato. So all of this will happen today, and we will also know who their deputies will be. The deputy will come from the Senate for the Senate, and the deputy from the Speaker of the House for the House of Representatives. The Governor General, she opens the session with the traditional throne speech from the throne. That's the correct name. We shorten it and say throne speech. And what it really is a statement of the policies and proposed measures of the executive, which is the cabinet.
Yes.
So what Dr. Dame Cecile Lagranado presenting today in the speech from the throne is what would have been presented to her by the executive, which is the prime minister is as the head of the cabinet, as to what are the plans, the policies, and what it did after the throne speech. It sets the stage for the first major debate in the parliament. Yeah, but the debate won't happen today.
Yes.
Today is for the installation and the formal opening of the parliament.
But the throne speech also gives a sense of the vision, what to expect, not only in Parliament, but what are they using as their guidelines to govern, or the policies that they would set going forward for Grenada as a nation. So it's going to be quite interesting, and I know many persons are looking forward to this.
Yes, yes, that is true. Because of course, we have had a new government installed after the elections of June 2022, and so ideally, it will be the first indication, the first formal indication of what is to come. In terms of the outlay of their policy agenda, and we just have just a little glimpse into, and you mentioned earlier what the theme of the throne speech is: transformative development towards a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada. And there's a national vision that the executive has outlined that will encompass that throne speech. Grenada, the national vision, which is Grenada, a resilient and prosperous nation with a conscious and caring citizenry, promoting human dignity and realizing its full potential through sustainable economic, social, and an environmental progress for all. So we would hear all of that. I'm sure some of the themes that would come through, some of the things that they're looking at is we can look out for developing of a robust ICT and digital economy, food security, plans for Carriacou and Petite Martinique, enhancing the tourism sector, and promotion of healthy living. So all of that we would look for as Dame Cecile presents the speech from the throne.
But everything within that kind of falls in line with the United Nations vision, or the Sustainable Development Plan for developing countries, or the world at large. And it's quite interesting that we're pinpointing on some of these aspects to highlight or focus on as we move forward.
Well, even closer to home, it's also part of the 2020-2035 National Sustainable Development. So lots of it is hinged on that, of course, falling in line with the UN declaration of where, developing states like ours should be heading. And I'm really, it is interesting to see how pivotal things like the environment, promotion of healthy living, all these things that, helps in our welfare,
Yes.
and the building of human capacity, if you will, and protecting the environment, protecting ourselves, better quality of life, how that is dovetailing into policy.
Yes.
That each session of Parliament shall be
So we
at
now
such
take it
place
into Parliament
within
as the clerk
Grenada,
is speaking.
and shall commence at such time as the Governor General may by proclamation appoint. And whereas it is further provided by subsection 2 of section 51 of the said Constitution that there shall be a session of Parliament once at least in every year, so that a period of 6 months shall not intervene between the last sitting of Parliament in one session and the first sitting in the next session. Now therefore I, Cecile La Grenade, Dame Grand Cross of the most distinguished Order of St. Michael and St. George, Officer of the most excellent Order of the British Empire, Governor General in and over Grenada, do hereby appoint the Parliament building at Mount Weldale in the town of St. George as a place where the first session of the 11th Parliament shall be held at 10 o'clock in the forenoon on Wednesday, the 31st day of August 2022, as the time at which the said session shall begin. And whereas, and the members of the said Parliament and all others of Her Majesty's officers and loving subjects in Grenada, and all others whom it may concern, are hereby required to take due notice hereof and give their ready obedience accordingly. Given under my hand and the public seal of Grenada, this 22nd day of August 2022, in the 70th year in the reign of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, God save the Queen. Proclamation from the Governor General. You may be seated. Consequent upon the elections which were held on the 23rd of June 2022, and in accordance with the sections 28 and 34 of the Grenada Constitution Order, it has become necessary to elect a President of the Senate, a Deputy President of the Senate, and a Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the Houses of Representatives for the 11th Parliament of Grenada. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order number 3 of the Senate, I now invite nominations for the office of President of the Senate.
Mr. Clerk, honorable members, I beg to nominate Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams as President of the Senate.
Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams has been nominated. Is there a seconder?
Honorable members, I beg to second that nomination.
Honorable members, Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams has been nominated and seconded as President of the Senate. Is there any other nomination? There being no other nomination, I now have great pleasure in declaring Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams as President of the Senate, and I now invite her to take the oath of allegiance and the oath of office.
I, Decima Margaret Williams, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. I, Decima Margaret Williams, do swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the Senate without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of Grenada. So help me God. Do I keep the pen?
Senator, President of the Senate, you may take the chair. Honorable members of the House of Representatives, pursuant to Standing Order number 3 of the House of Representatives, I now invite nominations for the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Mr. Clerk, honorable members of this House, I beg to nominate Mr. Leo Kito as Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Honorable members, Mr. Leo Cato has been nominated as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Is there a seconder?
Mr. Clerk, honorable members, I beg to second the nomination for Speaker of the House.
We now have a nomination for Speaker of the House and a seconder. Is there any other nomination? There being no other nomination, I now have great pleasure in declaring Mr. Leo Cato Speaker of the House of Representatives, and I now invite him to come forward and take the oath of allegiance. Can someone find Mr. Cato, please?
Viewers and listeners, in case you're wondering, is not that anything was happening untoward. What it is here is tradition. It's kind of one of our holdovers from the British, where the Speaker of the House normally shows resistance to being appointed the Speaker, and so he's tugged away by members to become the Speaker. So what you just saw there is British tradition. It's not Mr. Cato can't hear, or he was really, well, just to show resistance. So that's just part of the holdover of our parliamentary system. So here he comes, almost tugging and screaming because he's showing resistance to becoming the speaker. So that's just what it is. It's just part of the tradition, just in case you're seeing it for the very first time.
I, Leo Cato, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. I, Leo Cato, do swear that I will faithfully execute the office of Speaker without fear or favor, affection or ill will, and that in the execution of the functions of that office, I will honor, uphold, and preserve the Constitution of Grenada. So help me God.
Mr. Cato, Mr. Speaker, you may take the chair. Honorable members, I now invite the other members to come forward to take the oath of allegiance, beginning with the leader of government's business.
Senator the Honorable Adrian Augustine Thomas.
I, Adrian Augustine Thomas, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Thank you, Senator. You may take your seat.
Senator the Honorable David Evelyn Andrew.
I, David Evelyn Andrew, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Thank you, Senator. You may take your seat.
Her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. Yes, sir.
Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph.
I, Claudette Joseph, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Senator the Honorable Gayton Jonathan Lacrate.
I, Gayton Jonathan Lacrette, do swear that I will faithfully bear allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Senator the Honorable Gloria Ann Thomas.
I, Gloria Ann Thomas, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Senator the Honorable Katisha Douglas. I, Katisha Douglas, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. Senator the Honorable Nilon Franklin.
I, Nilon Nehemiah Franklin, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Senator the Honorable Mondi Andre Lewis.
I, Mondi Andre Lewis, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
Senator the Honorable Salim Rahman.
I, Salim Rahman, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Senator the Honorable Roderick Sinclair.
I, Roderick Sinclair, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable members of the House of Representatives, I now invite the other members to come forward and take the oath of allegiance, since we have already selected our speaker, and we begin with the Honorable Prime Minister.
I, Deacon Mitchell, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Thank you, Mr. Prime.
Honorable Joseph Andam.
I, Joseph Andel, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Lennox John Andrews.
I, Lennox John Andrews, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs
Honorable Tevin Andrews.
I, Tevin Andrews, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Dennis Cornwall.
I, Dennis Cornwall, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Kieran Zinelli James.
I, Karine Zinel James, do swear that I would faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So,
Honorable Ron Livingston Redhead.
I, Ron Livingston Redhead, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Philip Alfred Telesford.
I, Philip Alfred Telesford, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Andy Williams.
I, Andy Williams, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth
So help me God.
Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell.
I, Keith Claudius Mitchell, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God. I see a pen, did I mind that? Right? Yes. Dr. Clarice Modest Cohen.
I, Clarice Modest Cohen, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs, and successors according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Peter David.
I, Peter David, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law.
Honorable Kate Lewis.
I, Kate Skeeter Lois Peters, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Evelyn Pierre.
I, Emmeline Pierre, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law. So help me God.
Honorable Delma Thomas. I, Delma Thomas, do swear that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to Her Majesty's Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors, according to law. So help me God.
Would you all stand?
Let's pray. Guide, we beseech thee, Almighty God, members of both houses, that they may deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of thy holy name. Amen. I invite everyone to join me as we say the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever. Amen. Please be seated.
Is it your wish, honorable members, that the houses now adjourn during pleasure to await the arrival of Her Excellency, the Governor General? All in favor, say aye. Of the contrary view, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, I think the ayes have it.
Ladies and gentlemen, the House is now adjourned.
So the oaths of office have been taken by all the parliamentarians and what is going to happen now is that the House has been adjourned so that the President of the Senate, Dr. Decima Williams, Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams, and the Speaker of the House, Mr. Leo Cato, accompanied by the Clerk of Parliament, they left the chamber and they are now proceeding to the courtyard to await the arrival of Her Excellency, the Governor General, Dame Cecile Lagrenard. The Governor General, GCMG, OBE, PhD, of course, she will be attended to by her aide-de-camp, and they would arrive soon at Parliament Yard. She'll be greeted by presiding officers and the clerk at the table, and the band will then play the national anthem. So we await all of that happening. Again, those of you who are just joining us, we welcome you. We are coming to you live from the Parliament of Grenada, the building located at Mount Welldale in St. George. And we are bringing to you the first session of the 11th Parliament of Grenada. It's the 11th Parliament since the independence of Grenada in 1974. We do understand that there were some audio difficulties at the beginning of the broadcast, and we express our regrets. Trust that all are enjoying what you are seeing so far, and we hope that you continue on with us. And there we have some visiting dignitaries. We
Yes,
have
we
with
do.
us the Prime Ministers of St. Lucia, the
And
Honorable Philip J. Peer, and the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica,
Dominica.
the Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt. Also with us is the Director General of the OECS, Mr. Didicus Jules. So it's quite a momentous occasion
It
in
is.
St. George's this morning.
Indeed. And for those of you who probably missed the beginning, you missed the senators being appointed or taking their oath of office, as well as members of parliament, the House of Representatives, and so forth. But don't go anywhere. We'll be here to bring it to you.
Of course, we are here to take everyone through, and in terms of the senators appointed, the senators who took their oath this morning, the 7 senators from the government side: Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas, Senator the Honorable Quince Britton, Senator the Honorable Gloria Thomas, Senator the Honorable Gayton Jonathan Lacrette, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, and the President of the Senate, the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams, completes the 7 senators appointed by the Prime Minister. The opposition senators, the senators appointed this morning: Senator the Honorable Neilon Franklin and Senator the Honorable Katisha Douglas. Regrets the absence of Senator the Honorable Nolan Cox. And the independent senators who took the oath this morning: Senator the Honorable Mondi Andre Lewis, the representative of Labour, and Andia, he returns to the Senate.
Yes.
Senator the Honorable Roderick Sinclair, he's the representative for the Farmer and Fisher, and he returns as well. And the new senator for the private sector or business sector, Senator the Honorable Salim Rahman, replacing Senator, the long-serving and distinguished Senator Christopher Diali. Yeah. So these are the senators that took the oath this morning. And of course, we had the representatives in the House. Of course, the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, they won 9 seats in the last general elections, and it gives them the majority in the 15-member House of Representatives. The Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister, and the parliamentary representative for St. David, the Honorable Joseph Andel, parliamentary representative for St. Patrick West, the Honorable Dennis Cornwall, parliamentary rep for St. Patrick East. And we'll just stop here as we see the Governor General's cortege as she arrives at the Parliament building. So here she comes, Dame Dr. Cecile Lagrenade, GCMG OBE PhD, Governor General of Grenada. Takes a salute, and the band will play the national anthem. The royal salute she will receive.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just witnessed is our Governor General Dame Cecile Lagranade as she did the inspection of the Guard of Honor. She inspected the Guard of Honor, rather, and the Royal Salute.
Yes, she once the Governor General is in attendance as something as official as this, she receives the Royal Salute. The national anthem is played. She is the chief celebrant today, so to speak, as she opens the first session of the 11th Parliament. Dame Cecile has been our Governor General since 2013, and she really is the embodiment of regal. I see a remark when she came out about her gold hat. Yes, it's quite. And there she is inspecting the guard. It's a smaller gathering today of some of the officers of the Special Services Unit, a special branch, and also some senior members of the Royal Grenadier Police Force. The Parliament, the viewing of the procession this morning, as well as the attendance, is oversubscribed. It's probably the first time in a very long time that so many are tuning in this morning, and that is healthy, and of course that is rich, and we welcome that. So she takes the dais as she gets another salute before she enters the Parliament building. Let's take it in. General is being escorted to the where she meets the. She's escorted into she will be escorted into the presiding officer's room. That'll be done by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, where they would sign the Distinguished Visitors Book. The Chief of Protocol, Mr. Adrian Joseph, he extended and had her meet the new President of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And the procession goes in. You saw them go in the order of which the order of precedence of the Parliament, which is the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Her Excellency the Governor General. The Governor General's aide-de-camp, her lady in waiting as well. She does have a lady in waiting, and the Clerk of Parliament.
Then the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives will then re-enter the chambers and take their seats.
And once they do that, there'll be a fanfare.
The trumpets.
Yes, right. And the Sergeant at Arms will do that. And of course, the procession enters the chamber. We would see them enter in the following order. They'll enter in the following order now, and the order of precedence will be Her Excellency the Governor General, The Governor General is Adi Kam, and the Governor General's lady in waiting. She will ascend the steps of the throne and assemble company. She would then bow to the left. She'll bow to the right. At that time, the house is standing.
Yes.
And then everyone would sit.
Privy seated.
Yes, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, he will then mount the dais of the Parliament, and he would say the throne speech to the Governor General, and he returns to his seat. The Governor General would then read the throne speech, and then she would resume her seat. So,
And the theme for that throne speech would be transformative development towards a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada.
yes, and that is what all heirs will be geared to
Yes.
this morning, despite outside of the pomp, ceremony, and tradition of the opening of the Parliament. All eyes and ears will be on, what that will be. And so that will be very, very important to listen to. That's a highlight of
today's
any
ceremony.
opening of the Parliament, any first session of the Parliament. So, yep. So your thoughts on what has happened so far?
I think it is a momentous occasion, rather. And what I like to see is that a lot of youth are getting involved. So the Senator Neilon Franklin, and also one of our ministers, Honorable Karine. That, to me, I'm a youth, so that resonates with me, and it
Yeah.
shows us that even though we're young, we can also be a part of policy changes and so forth in our country.
Yes. I mean, you can't ignore it because it is such a, I mean, we're still at the point where our population, youth, people
Yes.
under 35 is about between 55 and 60%, and that cannot be ignored. And when we start talking about future and we start talking about transformation and we start talking of all of that, while all demographics should be in the process, you have to start looking to the younger demographic in terms of leading the process if you're really serious about future. So it is good. It is really, really
Yes.
good to see that. And of course, we see as well that, we had the oath of office being taken on both the Quran and on the
Yes,
Bible this morning.
inclusiveness.
And it just shows the richness of our democracy and
Yes.
the inclusivity of it. Not that religion should feature in any of this, by the way, but it really goes to show that we respect all, we welcome all, and that we are really a country of inclusivity. And sometimes those things are lost on us.
Yes.
And days like today, we are reminded of really, it takes all of us. Because our parliament is reflective of all of us.
Yes, it
Our
is.
parliament is reflective of the government who has come to power through a political party, an opposition, similar, and then we have independent representatives. So it is with the structure
Very
of the
holistic.
parliament itself, it's not one or the other. It's an inclusive setup. So that's quite interesting.
And even the throne speech that will be given by our Governor General, Dame Cecile Lagranade, you mentioned earlier some of the things that she'll be focusing on within that speech: developing a robust ICT and digital economy, food security, plans for Carriacou and PT Martinique, enhancing the tourism sector, and promotion of healthy living, rather. And I think all of those things emphasize that a nation's greatest resource is its human capital. So pinpointing those issues and focusing on those policies shows that they are willing to put nation first, or their people first, or human capital.
Indeed. Indeed. We also had the swearing in of the leader of the opposition.
Yes.
And the leader opposition, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, it is his second time swearing in as leader of the opposition. He was first leader of the opposition in 2008 and 2013. He's also the longest serving parliamentarian. So, I'm sure I'd like to hear from him as well. How does it feel? He came into the parliament in its third session in 1984. And here he is in its 11th session in 2022. And that is quite momentous as well. So we'd like to hear from him, just how it feels. And of course, the Prime Minister, Dickon Mitchell, his first session.
Time, yes.
Could you imagine when he woke up this morning? Yes, and as he came up, So it will be interesting.
I'm hoping we get to hear from him.
Yes, we should. We definitely should. And it's not important for even you and I, but it's important for the public, the viewing, to hear from our Prime Minister what he has to say about this special day. We've had, in terms of this, the Senate President, Dr. Decimal Williams, she becomes the fourth lady Senate President. Prior, we had Senator the Honorable Margaret Nichols, 1990 to 1995. Senator the Honorable Leslie Ann Sion, and I saw her in the chamber this morning. And Leslie Ann Sion was our president from 2004 to 2006. And then Senator the Honorable Joan Purcell, 2008 to 2013. And in 2022, Senator the Honorable Dr. Decimal Williams. We've had regrets this morning from the former senator of the House, Senator the Honorable Chester Humphrey, who served distinguishedly from 2014 to 2022. So it's very interesting. Mr. Leo Cato, he joins a distinguished arm of gentlemen from the parish of St. Andrew, who has been speakers of the House of Representatives. And so he comes right after a St. Andrew gentleman, the most distinguished, the Honorable Mr. Michael Peer, who served from 2013 to 2022. And then just down the road from us here at Parliament Building, preceding Mr. Peer, it was the Honorable George Maguire serving as well. And just for some history, the first Speaker of the House of Representatives was the Honorable R.C.P. Moore, OBE, MP, and also a JP, and he served in, of course, the year of independence, 1974 through to 1976. I am noticing, interestingly, Andia, that we have never had a female Speaker of the House.
Yes.
But that won't be too elusive. So we go back to we're downstairs, so we take you back upstairs into the Parliament chamber, where the proceedings are getting ready to resume. So, viewers, you would have seen the officers, the sergeant at arms and his deputy, they are putting the mace. And just to let you know that the mace symbolizes the authority of the crown in the Parliament, and it is used both in the Senate and the House of Representatives. Today, we have a joint special sit-in, and its symbolism extends by delegation to the authority of each house individually and to the authority of the Speaker of each house. It also extends to the authority of the Sergeant at Arms when executing an order on the direction of the Speaker. The mace is an essential part of the regalia of the Parliament, and without it, neither houses is considered to be properly constituted. So if the mace is not there and there, the Parliament is not constituted. When the Speaker is in the chair, interestingly, the mace rests in the upper brackets on the table of the Houses. When the Houses resolves itself into a committee of the whole, so normally you hear them say they adjourn to go into committee, you would see the Sergeant at Arms go up and the mace is removed into the lower brackets under the table. And once the House reconvenes, the mace goes back into the position in which we are looking here. So it's up, down. Yes, quite interesting indeed. And I know school is on vacation, and I'm sure there are youngsters looking on very interestingly, taking notes this morning. I went to school in a time in primary school where civics was taught. So these things, you just need to refresh them at my age now. Yes. But it was something that we learned very early. And I trust this is something we can go back to, because at this point in our democracy, in 2022. Such a vibrant time to be alive with information and in an evolving world.
Easily
I really
accessible.
think it is important that we start at the genesis and go back to things like civics in school to really, because what you're building is really engendering everything in us. Remember, youngsters will become leaders, so they need to know about the structure of our
Building that
governance.
foundation is important.
So we go back upstairs to the chamber. Enter the chamber of the Parliament. And again, it will be done in the following order. Her Excellency Dame Dr. Cecile Lagrenade, followed by her aide-de-camp and the lady in waiting. She ascended the steps of the throne and she
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament, the new government of Grenada embarks on this first session of the 11th Parliament at a time of renewed hope for the nation. Amidst the backdrop of a global pandemic and an uncertain economic future, the people of Grenada chose to take control of their destiny, opting for transformation and the aspiration of a better tomorrow. This spirit of empowerment is the essence of what my government intends to nurture as we seek to build together a just nation in which every individual has an equal opportunity to realize his or her full potential. To achieve this, my government's transformative vision directly addresses our nation's social and economic challenges. Transformation in the education and health sectors are crucial components in this process of change, as healthy minds and bodies are the foundation on which we must build to achieve sustainable growth and an improved quality of life for all citizens. Transformation to our national developmental model is also critical as my government seeks to combat poverty, foster a sense of pride in our heritage and natural resources, and assume our rightful place among the community of nations. Consistent with the foregoing, our theme for this new session of Parliament is transformative development towards a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, my government's program to transform Grenada will provide a balanced and integrated approach to sustainable development consistent with my government's thrust for a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada for all. This is aligned with Vision 2035, Grenada, a resilient and prosperous nation with a conscious and caring citizenry, promoting human dignity and realizing its full potential through sustainable economic, social, and environmental progress for all. To transform Grenada, my government will focus on the holistic development of our people, ensuring that they are equipped and able to produce and deliver new and improved goods and services, utilizing modern methods and techniques, and generating new sources of employment and income. To this end, my government will be driven by 5 overarching pillars. 1, citizen empowerment. 2, economic transformation. 3, governance and institutional rebuilding. 4, environmental management. And 5, foreign policy. Priorities for the first year are intended to be results-oriented, focusing on the implementation of strategic programs, projects, and policies to gain the maximum benefit from the resources that are available. Rather than making wish lists and setting overly ambitious targets, my government will focus instead on identifying priority areas for investment in different sectors. Through this approach, resources can be efficiently channeled to areas with the greatest need. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, my government is keenly aware that there is tremendous work to be done in the area of primary health care and access to quality health services. Improving public health surveillance and data collection across the health system is a priority for my government. Dialogue with developmental partners and key stakeholders has already begun with the aim of determining the most effective approaches to upgrade the national health infrastructure and fully implement the National Health Insurance Scheme. My government also recognizes the need to promote healthy living standards and wellness through food and nutrition security, meditation, and exercise. These are essential components to facilitate preventative lifestyles and behavioral practices which foster positive social outcomes. Thus, there will be a strong policy focus on preventative, curative, and rehabilitative health services. The COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting economic fallout negatively affected the mental health of many and heightened the risk for people already suffering from mental illness and substance use disorders. My government is committed to combating the stigma of mental health illness and intends to collaborate with stakeholders to create safe spaces across the islands where afflicted persons may seek treatment and repose. In collaboration with relevant stakeholders, including St. George's University, my government further intends to construct a new, modern public hospital with teaching facilities as the centerpiece of the development of education, health, and the wellness sector. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, my government believes that our human resources are our most precious asset and a fundamental contributor to the social and economic development of our nation. My government recognizes education as a basic right and will take the necessary steps to ensure free, universal education up to the community college level. My government is dedicated to steering the course towards transforming this country from one of underdevelopment and deprivation to one where all citizens can improve their living standards and quality of life through equal access to education, training, and employment opportunities. Key to this is the holistic development of our young people. My government intends to expand the core curriculum around components that build life skills, encourage critical thinking and independent learning, and foster lifelong learning attitudes to our students, teachers, leaders, and community members. My government will prioritize education infrastructure, technological capacity, and education financing. These priority areas seek to strengthen systems that support blended learning modalities in schools and will include training for teachers and administrators. Additionally, my government will invest in vocational skills and training to address the disconnect between the skill sets offered in schools, the specific development needs of our country, and labor market trends. My government is also committed to providing second chance opportunities to all youth who did not complete a primary, secondary, or tertiary education. As it pertains to youth empowerment and deployment, my government intends to reimagine the Imani program to provide more industry-ready training opportunities that would lead to sustainable employment. My government is excited about the new and ambitious initiatives that are being developed to be rolled out in the next few years. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, the unemployment and poverty rates among citizens continue to be affected by volatile global events. My government remains committed to cushioning the impact of external economic shocks on our people, especially the most vulnerable, as long as it is warranted. At a more strategic level, my government will take a comprehensive, coherent, and systematic approach to protecting and empowering the most vulnerable in our society. Accordingly, the pillars of our social services architecture will be substantially bolstered to focus not only on social protection, but also on empowering our most vulnerable. My government will retain the support for education, empowerment, and development, SEED, and other social safety net programs. The scope and delivery of these core social programs will also be enhanced, and the inclusion of holistic and genuine community empowerment, particularly in rural communities, will be prioritized. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that Grenada has a youthful population with over 50% of Grenadians aged 18 to 35. Youth will therefore play an integral part in the national development, providing significant contributions to a growing labor force. In addition to core social programs, my government intends to invest in training and development opportunities for young people, fostering an environment where youth have access to the support and facilities needed to break the cycle of unemployment and poverty. My government further recognizes that land ownership plays a significant role in the development of generational wealth and intends to forge strategic partnerships to provide quality, affordable, climate-resilient, Grenadian-styled family homes for our people. Special priority will be given to satisfying the housing demand for people in the lowest income bracket and youth. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, my government is committed to building a solid foundation to grow a more vibrant, dynamic, inclusive, and resilient economy. In 2023, investments will be prioritized to enable transformative shifts in the traditional productive sectors while simultaneously supporting the expansion of the new areas of economic growth. Particularly, emphasis will be placed on value addition and export sophistication of our agricultural and tourism products. My government's transformational agricultural policy will focus on food security by supporting local production and bolstering agro-processing. This policy feeds into my government's overarching goal to reduce Grenada's food import bill and nurture a society where citizens turn to local food sources. As such, a national campaign that highlights the quality and benefits of locally grown produce will also be explored as my government seeks to change the mindset surrounding imported food items. Hence, my government's thrust is to do the following: implement the spice replanting program and plant-a-tree campaign, enhance the Maribo Agricultural School, restructure the Marketing and National Importing Board to focus on agricultural support, marketing and procurement services, services in collaboration with farmers and commodity boards. Develop an agro-processing services unit to provide advice, coordinate, and assist entrepreneurs in the development and packaging of their products. Moreover, my government recognizes the need for appropriate pricing of essential public services such as electricity to increase the competitiveness of firms and, by extension, Grenada's economic competitiveness. My government understands that small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy and have the potential to allow our country to weather global economic shocks. Therefore, my government will promote innovation and entrepreneurship by supporting micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, socially owned enterprises such as cooperatives, and village economies that are all critical for economic transformation, inclusive growth, and job creation. Further, my government will invest in the emerging sector of the cannabis industry. Cannabis will be legalized, and a legal and regulatory framework for its production and sale will be created to commence and guide the development of the industry. Focus will be on medical and industrial uses of the plant to create employment and generate foreign exchange. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, the reopening of borders and our recent Spice Month celebrations have given a much-needed boost to our tourism sector. Although the effects of the pandemic can still be felt, plans are underway to develop a globally competitive tourism sector that will make a more substantial contribution to our gross domestic product, enhance employment opportunities, and build local capacity. To this end, my government intends to collaborate with partners in the tourism industry to establish and operate a first-class training institute that will improve the delivery of high-quality service in the tourism industry and provide on- and off-island training for young Grenadians to be competitive in this sector. Further, my government will continue to work with all stakeholders, including the Grenada Tourism Authority, to bolster Grenada's presence in the established source market and promote high-end stay-over visitors. The possibility of providing special incentives for development projects in rural communities will also be explored. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, culture is the channel for expression of the rich and unique identity of a people and should instill in us all tremendous pride. My government is dedicated to the preservation and celebration of Grenadian culture and intends to reinforce local traditions through the creation of institutions dedicated to honoring our heritage. My government will also seek to trademark aspects of our culture that are uniquely Grenadian, with the aim of protecting our authentic and long-standing traditions and patrimony for future generations. My government is also committed to imbuing a new generation with the appreciation for traditions that are truly Grenadian, thereby fostering a sense of connection and continuity with our past. To this end, cultural studies are currently being integrated into the education curriculum, and an enhancement fund will be established to support the development of cultural products. Pivotally, my government will establish a school for the performing arts and reintroduce the National Arts Festival to encourage a spirit of healthy competition among our young artists while helping them to hone their talents in song, poetry, prose, and dance. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, the excellence of Grenadian sportsmen and women on the global stage has solidified the quality and discipline of our athletes and highlighted the ability of this industry to empower our young people, connect our communities, and build our sense of national pride. The sporting industry also has the potential to be highly profitable, providing avenues to education, travel, and stable employment for our citizens. My government is fully committed to supporting the success of our athletes through the development of a sports tourism sector and the upgrade and implementation of the national sports policy to guide the planning, development, and administration of all sporting activities in Grenada. Strategic investments in state-of-the-art sporting facilities, training, and physiotherapy services, in addition to financial and educational assistance, will also serve to prepare our young sportsmen and women to play a vanguard role in the revolution in sports. Further, my government intends to implement a pay-for-play system where national teams and sports personalities are paid a monthly stipend when on national training and representing Grenada. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, my government remains committed to the development of a robust ICT and digital economy to keep Grenada abreast with the rest of the region and indeed the world in the conduct and ease of doing business. A strong digital economy supports my government's overall strategy to address unemployment and provides avenues for citizens to earn foreign capital without leaving our shores. My government recognizes the global thrust towards remote employment, especially in the creative sector, and welcomes the global opportunities that are now available to Grenadians. My government intends to actively seek out opportunities for further studies and training in the areas such as coding, film and multimedia, in addition to other digital and creative fields to support the development of the creative economy. Improving data integrity as well as strengthening and modernizing data systems are also a priority. As my government moves towards a paperless future, the understanding and use of ICT will be critical. Therefore, training in the use of computing technologies to conduct basic business as well will be made available to all citizens at the community level to ensure that they are appropriately equipped to function in the new digital environment. Additionally, my government will work with our internet service providers to establish a network of free wireless access points in every community, school, government office, tourism site, and recreational park. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, public investments will prioritize the infrastructure development, rehabilitation, and maintenance needed to guarantee optimal use of our physical assets and ensure that our economy, society, and environment benefit from quality, modern, and climate-resilient infrastructure. My government recognizes that adequate and efficient infrastructure improves other sectors such as healthcare and the environment. Accordingly, special emphasis will be placed on the systematic planning of projects in urban and rural areas, ensuring that they are supported by technical studies, including environmental impact assessments and cost-benefit analyses. My government is firmly committed to increasing value for money in public procurement and prioritizing productive and efficient spending to enhance the results-oriented public sector investment program. Importantly, my government is mindful that infrastructure costs are likely to remain high and will possibly increase in the context of the rampant global inflation, and as such, active expenditure and contract management of infrastructure work will be prioritized. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, Our sister isles are endowed with rich natural and human resources, and they exhibit pristine beauty. They hold rich historical roots. Carriacou and Petit Martinique are our connection to the Grenadines and facilitate the ease of inter-island travel. Thus, my government remains committed to pursuing efficient, reliable, and cost-effective transportation services, that is, airlift, including night landing, and the daily operations of the Osprey Ferry. Moreover, my government will implement a local government authority in Carriacou and Petit Martinique and prioritize infrastructure development and an equal provision of resources for social, economic, and human development with an aim for increasing efficiencies and its economic stability. The small size of Carriacou and Petit Martinique make the islands uniquely positioned to serve as transformation hubs, allowing for pilot program testing in the areas of renewable energy and aspects of the blue economy, fishing and marine industries. The blue economy holds tremendous potential to broaden, diversify, and generate sustainable economic growth for Grenada. My government views the fisheries and marine sector as a viable livelihood for many citizens and intends to position our country as a processing center for fish export destined to key international markets. Also, in support of expansive economic growth, my government will explore potential sectors including aquaculture, waste disposal, marine biotechnology, ocean renewable energy, coral farming, sustainable fisheries, bioprospecting, and marine ecotourism, among others. Notwithstanding, my government is aware that the exploitation of coastal and marine resources must be done in a responsible manner to preserve the vitally important resources provided by these ecosystems. Consequently, my government will establish a mechanism where marine resources are monitored to ensure that the natural regeneration of aquatic life in areas where such life has been depleted. Accordingly, my government will develop and implement a national fishing support program for local fishermen aimed at providing better training in modern sustainable fishing techniques. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, climate adaptation and mitigation are crucial priorities for my government. Our land, coastal and marine areas are finite resources which need not only protection, but also preservation. My government will increase emphasis on policies and activities that will lead to the protection of our environment, in particular, the health of our coastal waters, the conservation of critical ecosystems for wildlife, and the quality and sustainability of our water supply. My government will promote a national culture that appreciates the need to maintain balance between human needs and environmental sustainability. In support of this, my government intends to implement a reforestation program throughout Grenada and to encourage the creation of green spaces. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, dependence on traditional energy sources like crude oil places Grenada in a vulnerable position given its direct correlation with increases in electricity prices, food costs, and other gas and energy-related products. My government will invest in alternative and renewable energy and create avenues for the use of solar, geothermal, wind, and hydro energy targeted at lowering the cost of energy to consumers. My government will create legislation that allows citizens to implement alternative energy sources or products in their businesses and homes, To ensure viability, my government intends to incentivize individuals and businesses that undertake and fully implement this venture. My government, with support from the World Bank, will launch a major energy efficiency project in public buildings, which will not only reduce Grenada's carbon footprint, but result in significant savings in electricity costs. Furthermore, my government is currently working with the World Bank in the area of climate change budget tagging with the strategic objective of categorizing, measuring, and monitoring climate-relevant public expenditure to better identify and mobilize fiscal resources towards climate resilience building. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, my government is committed to pursuing a foreign policy that is anchored in democratic principles and good governance. My government values the mutually beneficial relationship Grenada maintains with bilateral and multilateral partners and intends to continue these engagements in support of the implementation of our developmental priorities. My government will also seek to forge new international relationships that align with its national transformation agenda. Trade is an area of critical importance for my government as the nation seeks to augment production in the marine and fishing and agro-processing sectors. Therefore, beneficial trade relationships that provide opportunities for growth, development, and the creation of sustainable jobs will be explored with a view to expanding and diversifying our export base. My government acknowledges the significant achievements towards regional integration in the Caribbean and welcomes these advancements. My government supports a coordinated regional foreign policy approach to engage the rest of the world and pledges to continue Grenada's commitment to the integration process by supporting regional institutions such as the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, the Organization of East Caribbean States, the OECS, the Association of Caribbean States, ACS, and the Community of Latin America and Caribbean States, CELAC, all of which seek the betterment of our peoples. My government further recognizes the key role that the Grenadian diaspora plays in representing Grenada's culture and talent in countries around the globe and intends to harness the input and contribution of this community to build foreign partnerships and support local industry. My government is committed to the inclusion of all Grenadians in the process of national development, regardless of political affiliation. Engagements to encourage increased input and expertise from this community have already begun. A call for Grenadians to serve on local boards was met with overwhelming support, receiving over 1,600 applications comprising persons from the diaspora, some of whom have already been selected and appointed to serve on these boards. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, the promotion of good governance, accountability, and citizens' genuine and active participation in governance and development process are key priorities for my government. In this regard, specific focus will be given to strengthen public sector governments through coherent and systematic modernization and reforms that are aimed at increasing citizens' confidence in the public sector, which in turn can contribute to enhancing its effectiveness and image while promoting accountability. My government intends to lead by example and will honor the Constitution and the ruling of the High Court on the payment of pensions to citizens. Plans to this end are already in motion, and the first payments are expected to begin in November of 2022. Pension reform will also be a key part of my government's plan to ensure a fiscally sound pension and social security system for public workers. My government has also prioritized and honored its commitment to repay 1.2 million in docked salaries to teachers and other public servants. In addition, my government has begun the process of regularizing the status of unestablished and contract workers operating within the public service. Transformation through self-reliance and the creation of wealth is the cornerstone of my government's plan to build a sustainable, prosperous society for the benefit of all. Consequently, my government intends to undertake a review of the minimum wage order through a collaborative review of wages with the private and public sectors with a view to increase the minimum wage. Additionally, to address cash flow challenges and to increase the volume of business transactions in the economy, my government is operationalizing its plan to pay public servants twice per month within the first quarter of 2023. This will be done in collaboration with the private sector to have this practice standardized throughout the country, and my government is happy to indicate that some private sector businesses have already begun to pay their employees twice per month. Further, my government is cognizant of the fact that the implementation of public projects, programs, and policies have differential impacts on women and men that must be considered. Importantly, therefore, gender mainstreaming will be applied across all priority programs, policies, and projects to reduce gender disparities in keeping with the Sustainable Development Goals and the National Sustainable Development Plan. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, at present, the economy is facing an unprecedented level of uncertainty. Lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, new public health concerns such as the monkeypox virus, Russia's war in Ukraine, high and rising global inflation, global supply chain challenges, geopolitical strains, and tighter financial market conditions pose the greatest risk to the global economy and, by extension, Grenada's macroeconomic and fiscal outlook. Based on the data collected for the first 6 months of this year, our economy is expected to register positive growth for 2022 and 2023. Though the projection for 2023 is for weak growth given the global economic outlook. Total public debt at the end of June 2022 stood at $2.1 billion, or 66% of GDP. And the full year estimate is 67.6% of GDP. Cognizant of the existing economic realities, my government will pursue a path of prudent fiscal management to preserve credibility and safeguard medium-term fiscal and debt sustainability, while cushioning the impact of a harsh macroeconomic environment on citizens, especially the most vulnerable. The fiscal position of my government is projected to improve in 2023 and over the medium term. The underlying objective of my government's medium-term fiscal strategy is to support its transformational agenda while simultaneously safeguarding fiscal credibility and sustainability. The fiscal forecasts are subject to review and revision prior to the budget presentation later in the year, given the prevailing and potentially grave macroeconomic uncertainties. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, the legislative agenda for the upcoming period will be driven by my government's focus, transformative development towards a sustainable, equitable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada. The proposed legislative agenda will cover the following areas, among others: digital transformation, natural resource preservation, renewable energy, urban planning, and labor relations. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, the people of Grenada have chosen transformation, and my government is fully committed to delivering on its mandate. This is an exciting time for our nation, one that is filled with palpable hope and the promise of a brighter future. True and lasting success can only be achieved with the support and action of all citizens, both at home and in the diaspora. Let us embody the words of our national anthem and advance as one people as we collectively seek to uplift Grenada. The time is now. In this context, my government reaffirms its major focus for this session of Parliament as transformative development towards a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada. Madam President, Mr. Speaker, members of Parliament, as we embark on this journey towards self-actualization as a nation, I close with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. It is therefore my distinct pleasure to declare the first session of the 11th Parliament open. Thank you, and may God continue to bless us all.
So that was the throne speech as delivered by Dame Dr. Cecile Lagrenade, Governor General of Grenada. The presiding officers will now put the question for the adjournment.
Be further resolved that debate on the address be deferred to a date to be named.
Leader of the Opposition, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell.
Senator Adrian Thomas.
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I beg to associate the Senate's sentiment with the motion expressed by the Prime Minister.
Senator Neelan Franklin.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Honorable members of the House of Representatives, the question proposed is that the motion moved by the Prime Minister, Honorable Dickon Mitchell, and seconded by the Leader of the Opposition, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, which reads, that the Houses of Parliament record their thanks for the gracious address delivered today by Her Excellency, the Governor General, and that debate on this address be deferred to a date to be named and approved. Honorable members, the question is that the motion moved by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, and seconded by the Leader of the Opposition, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, that the Houses of Parliament record their thanks for the gracious address delivered today by Her Excellency the Governor General be approved. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of the contrary opinion, say no. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Honorable members of the Senate, the question is that the motion moved by the Honorable Leader of Government Business in the Senate and seconded by the Honorable Neil Franklin be approved. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it.
Honorable Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell.
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the adjournment of the House's sine die.
Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell.
To second the motion, Mr. Speaker.
Leader of Government Business, Honorable Nathan Thomas.
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I beg to associate the Senate with the sentiment of the motion.
Honorable Neil Franklin.
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion.
Honorable members of the House of Representatives, the question proposed is that this Honorable House now stands adjourned sine die. Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House now stands adjourned sine die. Those who are of that opinion, say aye. To the contrary view, say nay. The ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Honorable members of the Senate, the question proposed is that this Honorable House now stands adjourned sine die. Honorable members, the question is that this Honorable House now stands adjourned sine die. Those who are of that opinion, say aye. On those to the contrary view, say nay. Oh, the ayes have it. Indeed, the ayes have it.
Madam President, Mr. Speaker, before the House is adjourned, may I seek your indulgence to acknowledge the presence of our visiting dignitaries, the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Prime Minister Skerrit, perhaps the audience may want to see. The Honorable Philip J. Pear, Prime Minister of St. Lucia. The Honorable Fred Mitchell, Foreign Minister of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And Dr. Dignitaries Jules, Director General of the OECS. Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Speaker.
Thanks to everyone for coming. The House is now adjourned.
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just seen the adjournment of the opening of the first session of the 11th Parliament. The Governor General would have exited along with the other members. They would now go to take their pictures and so forth. But let's focus more on the throne speech, Brenda. I think it was very thought-provoking and insightful in terms of what to expect from this government going forward. And they pinpointed some issues, and we were taking notes. Both of us were taking some notes. But what I think came out to me is the hope for a better tomorrow or brighter tomorrow. And we see that a lot. The emphasis placed on youth and health and transformative systems or structures that will be put in place in order to enhance our societies on a whole. They mentioned in particular improving our ICT and addressing some of the social and economic issues that we are now faced with, and young people. And I keep going back to that because it was emphasized a lot throughout her entire speech, the emphasis on youth and solving youth employment and so forth, and health. Health was a major aspect of that speech.
Right.
And sports tourism, that's something I think we need to start focusing on in Grenada. There are other Caribbean islands who have started to pinpoint that. And for some of the viewers who are watching, when the mention of cannabis, legalizing marijuana as we know it, it's affectionately known.
Well, that was an announcement.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of the announcements. The others were like direction as to where we would go with some specifics. But the legalization of cannabis was really the big announcement that came out of it today. Yeah.
But from that throne speech, I got that there's a need for more efficiency, and that's something that they're going to be working on.
Definitely, because the elaboration and the direction of where they want to go with the robust ICT agenda and to enhance the digital economy, of course, that would increase efficiencies. The way they are looking at dealing with the modalities in school, with the blended learning and the other areas of skills and so on, the things you're looking at to do in the blue economy, all of that would increase efficiency. But we must increase efficiency by building human capacity. So that was not left behind. There were also, kind of a thrust, if you will, or some direction as to the intention of the government and where they want to go. So all of that was outlined. And of course, the fiscal state, what is happening, mentioning that the first 6 months that Grenada was in, so from January to June, we did see growth, and that, there's the ending up 2022, should be optimistic as well. But there is just a little apprehension about 2023, rightfully so, because of the world factors, and we cannot close our eyes to that. I mean, we all see what is happening around us. Put our debt at 2.1 billion, and that is 66% of the GDP. And according to the IMF, we're just kind of teetering there as to where we should be. So, of course, that will be managed in a very, very strategic way if we ought to fulfill some of the development agendas that have been outlined by the executive through the throne speech delivered by the Governor General this morning. As you mentioned, youth, and no policy or no agenda going forward can leave out youth.
That's correct, because 50% of our population, as she rightly said.
And in the throne speech, it was made clear. If you are looking at a population that is half youth, And you are mentioning transformation, and you are looking at 2035 and future leaders and future everything. You'll be foolhardy to ignore how prominent youth should play in the development agenda.
And even climate change, I think she made brief mention to that of building resilient housing in align with climate change and global warming on a whole, because we know that's very crucial at this time. So if we're thinking about the future, I think we're thinking about youth, climate change does play a pivotal role as well.
Let's put it this way: if we don't pay attention to what's going on with our climate, if we don't reduce our carbon footprints, if we don't build smarter, use more efficient, and so on, we would not have a future to build, because we won't have a planet. The rate humans are going. So it is incumbent upon our very survival, for all the other goals we want to achieve, that we pay specific attention to climate change and issues of the environment and so on. And of course, there was also mention of reducing our importation bill,
Yes.
and how creative we need to get to do so. And
Campaigns
yeah.
to promote local production and agro-processing. That's a step in good direction, the right direction. And so that was very interesting that she mentioned that. And in terms of revolutionizing our healthcare system, placing that primary emphasis on preventative methods and practices and so forth, that was also highlighted, and I think that's very crucial for us to focus on as well.
Yeah, indeed. And then there must be strategic areas for things that, specific legislation that will, and now that we do have active participation by, of course, a majority and a minority in the House, we expect the debates on those issues to be robust. We expect very strong, legislative bills to come to go forward to the Senate, and of course to get it rolling, because the executive, they do need the support of those in the minority, as well as those in the Senate, the upper house, to pass the bills and to move forward with the legislative agenda. So we are here awaiting the arrival. We're going to have some interviews. Of course, I think our first guest will be the Honorable Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, and it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts this morning, as we should also be hearing from the leader of the opposition, Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, and our visiting dignitaries will probably stop by just to give a warm courtesy call, courtesy hellos to the Grenadian public. We have Prime Ministers Roosevelt's Carrot from the Commonwealth of Dominica, Philip J. Pierre from St. Lucia, the Foreign Minister from the Bahamas, and Dr. Didicus Jules, who's like an honorary Grenadian. He is the Director General of the OECS, and they are here this morning as our visiting dignitaries. So it's been quite, it's impressive that it has gone really well on time.
It has.
That's one of the things with Parliament, how on time and then the order is kept and all of that. Yeah. So
It was quite an interesting and momentous occasion, rather.
yes.
The first for many.
Yes, indeed. So we went just before we got to the Governor General coming back, we were mentioning the order and structure, just folks get an understanding of that. The Senate is commonly referred to as the upper house, and the House of Representatives are referred to as the lower house. In the way our parliamentary democracy is set up, the upper house, the Senate, is really the place where the laws go to, the lower house to be passed. And we mentioned earlier that the Senate consists of 13 members, and 7, they are appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister. 3 are appointed by the Governor General on the advice of the Leader of the Opposition. And then we have the interests, labor, farmer, fisher, and private sector. And those are normally if the consultation with these various organizations. Our senators are Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas. Senator the Honorable Adrian Thomas is also the leader of government business in the in the Senate, that is. So that is important. Senator the Honorable Quince Britton, Senator the Honorable Gloria Thomas, Senator the Honorable Jonathan Lacrette, Senator the Honorable David Andrew, and our President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams. The opposition senators, Senator the Honorable Norland Cox, and he is absent today, Senator the Honorable Neilon Franklin, and Senator the Honorable Katisha Douglas. I think most of us are seeing her and hearing of her for the first time. So we would, of course, follow her in the Senate to see how that goes. And our independent senator, Senator the Honorable Mondi Andre Lewis, he is for the Labour, and he returns to the Senate. Senator the Honorable Roderick Sinclair, Farmer Fisher, he returns as well. And Senator the Honorable Salim Rahman, and he represents the private sector. And in the House of Representatives, the House of Representatives, the representatives are sent to the House of Parliament by the people. So they are representing the people. That's why the Parliament is called the People's House. And so they are sent here because they participated in the last general elections, and the representatives in the House, they won their seats. So in the House, we refer to them as parliamentary representatives, as per the Constitution. Their ministerial portfolios for a day like today is not really important. Who they are as the representatives, that's really the focus. So the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, Prime Minister, leader of the executive, and he is the parliamentary representative for St. David. The Honorable Joseph Andel, the parliamentary representative for St. Patrick West. The Honorable Dennis Cornwall, parliamentary representative, St. Patrick East. The Honorable Lennox Andrews, parliamentary representative, St. Andrew Southwest. The Honorable Karen James, parliamentary representative for St. John. The Honorable Andy Williams, parliamentary representative, St. George South. The Honorable Ron Livingston Redhead, parliamentary representative, St. George Northeast. And the Honorable Tevin Andrews, parliamentary representative, Carrick-Pity Martinique. And the Honorable Philip Teleswood, parliamentary representative, St. George Southeast. And these are the 9 members from the National Democratic Congress who won the majority of the seats in the parliament in the last general election. That's 9. For the opposition, the New National Party won 6 of the seats in the last general election, so they formed the official, and they call it Her Majesty's, Her Majesty's official opposition. It's our constitution. For all our little chiding about Her Majesty, it is what it is until we do otherwise. All right, so the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, he is the opposition leader, and he is the representative for St. George Northwest. The Honorable Dr. Clarice Modeste, parliamentary representative, St. Mark. The Honorable Charles Peter David, parliamentary representative, the town of St. George. The Honorable Kate Lewis Peters, St. Andrew Northeast. The Honorable Emmeline Pear, St. Andrew Southeast. And the Honorable Delma Thomas, St. Andrew Northwest. So that rounds out our 15 representatives in the House of Parliament, the lower house that is, and our senators in the upper house. That is the constitution of the House for the 11th Parliament of Grenada. And today is the first session. Yes, and yes, so it's important that the folks know,
They know, yes.
What it is and just what we're dealing with. Of course, the sovereignty of we are parliamentary democracy. Sovereignty resides with the people, and the ascension to the parliament by the representatives is from the people through the process of election, and they occupy the seat of power. The parliament consists of the Queen, represented by our GG, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. And so today, in terms of the passage of legislation and so on, the participation requires all three components of the parliament. So a bill must be agreed to by both of the houses and receive what is called royal assent before it can become an act of parliament. And the powers of the Senate and the House of Representatives are constitutionally equal, except financial legislation may not be introduced in the Senate. So anything with appropriations or financing and so on, it has to come from the executive, which is the coming from the representatives to go up to the right, exactly. And all senators are appointed by the Governor General, not to be lost on that, on the advice of the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition. And the houses of representatives, they are directly elected by the people. So that is the power we, the people, have. That we repose through our representatives to do the work on our behalf. So that's what's happening here. Strangely though, we may hear the upper house and the lower house, but in essence, the Senate, while traditionally called the upper chamber, the upper house, the House of Representatives really plays the predominant role in the parliament system. So, that's the executive plays a predominant role. The executive is a cabinet, which is led by the Prime Minister.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are waiting our interviews. Photos are still on the way, but we understand, the Parliament building is a big space. So they come from the chamber, come down, and then we are on the last floor. So Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell will be here with us momentarily. So we look forward to speaking with him. Yes. And so you, the viewers and listeners, please stay tuned, as I know you too would want to hear from Prime Minister this morning, just how he's feeling on this very, very momentous and ceremonial occasion of the opening of the first session of the 11th Parliament, with him being the head of the executive branch of government. So we await Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell. And yeah,
I know some people probably don't pay attention much to these proceedings, but they should, because it shapes what happens to us, the policies and so forth. So sometimes you see certain things and you complain about them, and well, you need to pay attention to who you're electing, and you need to pay attention to our parliament sittings and so forth. That's where everything plays out, and then they spill over into our society. Yes.
Yeah, very, 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 very good point. Good intervention there. Because our society, remember our leaders, the Speaker of the House, the parliamentary representative, the senator, they come from us.
Yes.
And so if we're saying that we live in a society where civics, our governance structure, our parliament and what it means, if we do not understand those things, then it becomes very difficult for us to acquaint ourselves.
Yes.
So when we hear certain things, so that's why it's imperative that the civics and so are brought back to the stage where from the time you're 5, you understand what's happening.
Yes.
I mean, as a primary school students, we were brought to parliament, so we you had the speaker and all these people, but we have to pause here because it is with immense pleasure that we bring to you the Prime Minister, the Honorable Dickon Mitchell, in his first interview right after the presentation of the first throne speech delivered by the Governor General, and in the first session after 11th Parliament. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm fortunate to have both of you.
You're fortunate to have both of us.
Yes.
We are delighted to have you. Much obliged.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes. Prime Minister, on the way here this morning, I was telling Leslie Ann Johnson earlier that as I was getting ready to come up, and I know you were going to be interviewed, and I thought to myself, as I'm getting ready, I'm thinking, okay, he must be getting ready. He is up. What is he thinking? As you made a drive to the Parliament, as you came up the driveway, as your cortege came up, you came off you stood on the dais and you walked into the parliament. What were you thinking? How did it feel?
Well, I suppose it's probably easier to ask how did it feel. It was a sense of immense pride and humility. I don't think as a primary school student I thought of the fact that I could become the prime minister. I am the prime minister now, and I suppose on reflection, not many Grenadians have held the office of prime minister. So I have to appreciate, in a sense, how lucky and fortunate I am, and also to remember, given the weight of responsibility that comes with the office, to remain humble and to remain kind.
Indeed, great. So you were ready for today?
Yes.
Yes, I was ready for today. We did have a bit of a dry run on Monday, so that made it easier.
Yes.
And I've been to Parliament a lot in recent times as well, because I was the honored counsel for
Yes.
Holland, and so that required me to attend most parliamentary sessions over the last 12 years. So
Yeah.
I'm relatively familiar with the
I did
procedures.
see you in the parliament about twice during my coverage of the parliament. That's correct. Before, of course, becoming a politician. Prime Minister, in the presentation of the throne speech, and just to the national vision, the theme was transformative development towards a sustainable, equitable, and prosperous Grenada. And then it encompassed in this national vision, which says, Grenada, a resilient and prosperous nation with a conscious and caring citizenry, promoting human dignity and realizing its full potential through sustainable economic, social, and environmental progress for all. Resilient and prosperous nation with conscious, caring citizenry, promoting human dignity. A conscious citizenry promoting human dignity. How critical is that component in terms of human capacity building? How does that lynch, and why is that so important to realize full potential through this sustainable economic and social progress?
Well, I think all development, for it to be meaningful, has to be about human beings. We're not base animals, and so to a large extent, development means bettering and improving our lives, not just from a pure physical or economic sense, but from the perspective of how we treat each other. And I think over centuries, a lot of the more cruel, more mean forms of behavior, thankfully, we've been able to ameliorate and in some cases extinguish it. We still struggle as human beings with some of that. But I think if we look at our society, for example, we once were a plantation economy where slavery was legal, where you could own and possess another human being. We have, through struggle, moved away from that. We live in a free society where our individual liberties are guaranteed under the Constitution. But even so, there are still elements of behaviors that we exhibit that clearly we need to keep working on. So I think just being kind, for example, is something that we have to constantly reinforce. Being polite is something that we have to constantly reinforce, because if we don't, then you could learn other behaviors, and it's quite easy for human beings to slip to baser type behaviors. So I think the question of dignity and how you treat a fellow human being is just as important a development uh, index as your GDP growth. So do you, for instance, as a young person, step aside to let an older person go ahead of you? Or do you stand there? Do you stand and give an older person the seat? So those little things, in my view, matter just as much in terms of judging your development, judging your civility, and judging your progress. So I think human dignity is at the core of all of what we do, and we have to remind ourselves of that when we seek to talk about development. So it's not just economic development; it's social development, it's ethical development, it's moral development as well. So from where I sit, those principles are core and perhaps even more important than just pure physical development.
Thank you. And yeah.
Notwithstanding that we know the world focus in terms of the crisis that we in, the financial crisis, and in the throne speech, our Governor General Dame Cecile Lagranade, she pinpointed that our debt at the moment stands at $2.1 billion. And in your capacity as Minister of Finance as well, how do you see us going forward in terms of reducing that debt?
Right. So there's a permanent, and if I may say, commitment to debt reduction. And it's a process that I inherited. As you may be aware, Grenada at one point in time, in fact, had debt that clearly was not sustainable. We've had to have a self-imposed structural adjustment program, which meant to some extent we were in an IMF program. And one of the single goals of that program was, in fact, to reduce our debt to GDP. ratio, and that commitment remains and continues. To some extent, it's been handicapped by COVID-19 and the challenges that came with that. And so, for instance, we would have suspended the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which placed certain limitations on our ability to borrow as well as our ability to spend. Uh, those limitations, we are going to be going back to the Fiscal Responsibility Act because the circumstances with suspension no longer exist. There's no longer a state of emergency. And so come 2023, the intention is to go back and to remain compliant with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. The effect of this will be to continue driving down our debt to GDP ratio. So the commitment to pay down our debt remains, the commitment to not borrow unless you absolutely have to. And that if you do borrow, it's to ensure that it particulates for productive sectors and sectors that can in turn grow the economy. Because the challenge we face now is that for every dollar we spend, 30 or 40 cents goes towards debt payment, and we have to continue that until we get to a point where we have significantly less debt. What it does mean is it handicaps our ability to do more capital spending, but the only way to get out of this situation is to in fact grow the economy. The trick, I suppose, is to borrow only when you need to, and to ensure that the borrowing is then deployed properly to help grow the economy.
As you mentioned, the deployment and deploying properly, I'm sure that you are there, you will be strategic with that. And normally our traditional areas have been the areas of agriculture, health, and mentioned in the throne speech is a lot about the environment, which is positive based on the world in which we live. So what are some of the things that and I'm particularly interested in like the areas we have not tapped into before in terms of agriculture, health, and so areas of research and collaboration. Can you expand on those and what specific plans you have for those?
All right. Well, I think the challenge we face is we're a small island, and therefore the question of the environment is critical. We have more ocean space than we have land. We live in the hurricane belt, and so the impacts of climate change, the severity and frequency of hurricanes, storms, flooding, in the case of St. Vincent volcano, and tsunamis, these are ever-present existential threats. And so we have to be mindful that as we grow and develop, we in fact build our homes or infrastructure to be resilient to some of those things. So for instance, we have to start thinking about, for example, whether we move our utilities on the ground so that they can withstand the impact of hurricanes. So those are some of the programs we look to explore and expand. We have to look at things like food security, because clearly we've seen with COVID-19 that if we keep importing food and there are transportation and logistical challenges, it means you will not find food on our shelves. And so we need to make sure that from at least feeding ourselves point of view, that more of our food comes from the island so that we can get it. When it comes to healthcare, I think we talked about, and the Governor General's throne speech started off with healthcare, because to a large extent, our behavior, our lifestyle, contribute significantly to the challenges that we face in our healthcare sector. And it basically means that we engage in behaviors that are not helpful, that are not healthy, and then we have to spend taxpayers' money to mitigate and to cure the consequences of our own behavior, where if we were simply healthy, if we ate healthier, if we exercise, if we didn't abuse substances, a lot of our health problems would not exist. So you see, for example, there's increased need for dialysis services at the General Hospital. Dr. Bristol and so on have pointed out that 12 years ago, you would have had one young person on dialysis. Fast forward 12 years later, you've got 33, 34 persons on dialysis. And these things, if you just, based on their projections, it's likely based on a model done in the US among Black and Hispanic people, that 3% of the population gets to a stage where you have acute kidney failure. And the cost of doing those things, if you extrapolated that in the case of Grenada, it would be $33 million a year. Right. This is funding that clearly we don't have and we can't afford. But again, we don't have to get to that point if we adjust our lifestyles, if we adjust our eating, if we adjust, minimizing and not abusing alcohol, if we exercise, if we eat a lot of the food that we grow. So those are some of the things that we have to be able to address from a health perspective. But outside of that, I think there's genuine economic opportunities in the health sector. Tourist travel, whenever they travel, they tend to perhaps become a lot more ambitious. Some of the things they do. You can only look at places like Panama, Colombia, Costa Rica. You've seen countries which have basically cosmetic surgery and those kinds of things actually part of the tourism process, because their health services can do that. Even places like Barbados have benefited from that. So we think that there's a genuine opportunity with St. George's University, with the amount of physicians that we produce worldwide, to really have a state-of-the-art healthcare facility that also is hinged on improving our tourism product so that more persons can come, knowing that there's first-class health services, as well as to do some of the more elective surgical procedures.
Have we identified a place for the new hospital we're planning to build?
I mean, we have not, as an administration, identified a place.
Okay.
There were prior administrations that earmarked certain locations. I think we don't want to reinvent the wheel. I think once they meet, in a sense, the objective criteria as to the best location for such a facility, then we'll certainly be prepared to go along with it.
Thank you.
You mentioned, and we spoke about tourism a while ago, and in the throne speech, she emphasized the need to improve or enhance sports tourism, rather. How do you see this playing out in terms of increasing our revenue on that end?
Right. So, I mean, we have two pretty expensive physical infrastructure facilities, the cricket stadium and the track and football stadium, and they're not used often enough. So just justifying the cost of these facilities and the maintenance of them requires us to have a lot more activities. And that means we have to look not just within Grenada, but outside of Grenada to bring such activities to Grenada. Sports enthusiasts, sports fanatics travel.
Yes.
Whether it's football, whether it's cricket, I mean, you could only, if you look at the Barmy Army from the UK, they follow the UK cricketers regardless of how good or not good the English may be doing wherever they go. If you look at rugby followers, they are quite passionate. They follow their heroes, their athletes wherever they go. And so we can go on and on. What that means is people have to travel, people have to book hotels, people need all of the support services. So if you take just, for example, English schools cricket, if we can during the summer encourage these schools to come to Grenada, bring the students to Grenada, have them stay and interact with our citizens, then that's just another version of tourism. So we certainly think, particularly during what is the non-traditional peak tourist season here, there's real genuine opportunity to invite and host in Grenada significant sporting events that could help bolster our tourism activities. And our athletes have put Grenada on the map.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to understand that when we invite someone to Lhasa just grounds, for example, we can say to them, this is the ground that produced the world champion in javelin. And that is what marketing is about. It sells. People will want to come to see where Anderson Peters trained. You know, what is it about this island that produces the kind of athletes that it produces? What is it about this island that produced the Kirani James? Medals per capita, I think we rank probably #1 in the world. So those are some of the, I'm not a big marketer, but I think just from a common sense perspective, those are some of the things that I think we can certainly use to bolster our tourism products. So I can certainly tell you there are things we need to change in terms of how we market Grenada. When we land at the airport, we should be seeing our national heroes. We should be seeing the photos of not just me and the Governor General and the leader of the opposition, but we should be seeing, in my view, the people that really matter. Anderson Peters, Kirani James, that's the photographs that need to go up. And I'm sure the Board of Tourism is listening. And I'm sure, therefore, that they too will take the cue.
So much for you not being a good marketer.
As to some of the things that we need to do to make sure that we really position Grenada. Because I tell you this, when I travel, that's what people ask.
Yes.
What is it you eat and drink that produces an Anderson Peters or quarter milers, right? And that is what they're known for. They're not known for me or the former prime minister. You know, they're known for athletes, and so we really need to capitalize on that, not just from a marketing point of view, but also from a more fundamental point of, I'm sure athletes would be gratified if they see real opportunity and real investment being made in sporting facilities, and encouraging more young people to play sport, and encouraging the training of more persons to coach them, you know, to ensure that they lead healthy lifestyles and that there's another opportunity for another Anderson Peters or another Kirani James.
Yeah, talking about opportunities and athletes, I'm sure many of them looked on this morning, and part of the throne speech and part of the policy direction of your government is to pay for play for elite athletes. So kind of wrap their heads around that. What would that look like for an athlete?
Well, I mean, we haven't worked to the fine details, but the bottom line is this. If you're representing Grenada, you're working on behalf of Grenada. And we need to ensure that at least there is some remuneration to back that up. Because to a large extent, what we have is a situation where I can take swimming, for example. If you representing Grenada at the swimming tournaments in the OECS, you are doing so on your own with very little support from the government at all. It means your parents, it means you or your club are the ones who basically have to pay the hotel, pay the ticket, and all that goes with it. And we are saying that if you are representing your country, and you're bringing glory to your country and in essence marketing your country, the government needs to subsidize, even if not fully. There should be a clear policy that says we are contributing towards that, and it could be cricket, football, netball, whatever form of sports, volleyball, we think it's important to assist our personnel in that regard. So that's essentially the concept.
Right. Prime Minister, before you leave, I can't let you go without asking just a large percentage of our population, and the Governor General just put it in our consciousness again this morning of just how large our youth, the population is. And I know, anything you do has to really does go, it has to be a heavy focus if we're looking at future and transformation. In terms of the reimagining of the Imani program, just give us, some quick words on that. And as you wrap, just tell us what you look forward to in terms of the tone, the debates of the Parliament as we move forward.
All right. So the reimagining of the Imani program means the program should really be a training program, and the training should specifically focus on the lack of skill sets that we need in Grenada. And I mean, we can start with vocational skills. We can start perhaps just the construction industry, for example. There has to be a direct link between what the labor market requires and the training and education and vocational skills that we teach. Right. So we can't continue a situation where the focus is not on technical skills, because it's obvious we need the technical skills from the marine industry, from the construction industry, the air conditioning, refrigeration industry, the electrical, plumbing. Those are skill sets that we do not have adequate supply. And so we need to reimagine the program by ensuring that we can produce that kind of skill set. That's just one example. But I'll take another example. If we are going to have a state-of-the-art health services in the next 2 or 3 years, it means we need to produce hundreds of nurses. It means we need to produce the technical people to manage, repair, and maintain modern, sophisticated medical equipment. So it means we need to be training our personnel. And I will admit I don't like the word Imani because it might be brands you negatively. We should really be training our persons to do the jobs that are required. So if you're an air condition technician, that is your job. That is your title, not an Imani. And I've said this repeatedly, when I meet young people and ask them, what do you do? And they tell me they're an Imani. I was like, okay, tell me your job description. Tell me what you actually do, because saying you're an Imani doesn't give me your skill set. It doesn't say you're a cameraman, a camerawoman. It doesn't say you're a seamstress or a tailor. So that is the reimagining we want to focus on, and in a sense, work backwards from that. So we know we would need a hospital. We know how many nurses we will need. How many nurses do we need in our communities? And specifically train people so that when the training is done, they are deployed immediately into the field of employment. In terms of the debate overall, I'm looking forward to a robust, exciting, substance-based debate. I think you can do that and still enjoy it, still have fun. I think the elections prove that. And so the focus for me is really about that. You can't take yourself too seriously, but you certainly have to take the nation's business seriously. Thank you.
Yes, we maintain our spiciness in
Yes.
all we do.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest
Enjoy
of
the rest of the day.
And best wishes
Thank
going
you.
forward.
All right.
Much obliged. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, the Prime Minister of Grenada, as he begins as the head of the Executive Prime Minister of the 11th Parliament, today being the first session. Our next guest will be our newly minted President of the Senate, the Queen of St. Andrew, Dr. Decima Williams.
Quite interesting remarks from our Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell. The focus on youth and just that transformative mindset or the systems that they're willing to put in place going forward. It's quite interesting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. And we have been joined at the table by the President of the Senate, the Honorable Dr. Decima Williams. Good morning.
Good morning. And thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations to all of Grenada, especially Grenadian women.
Yes. I'm happy you said it.
Because we were coming to that.
We were coming to that. Yes, because it just this morning as we sat here, it dawned on us that we have not had, you're the fourth
Mhm.
female to rise to the president of the Senate, but we have never had a female speaker of the House. It was this morning as we were, forthcoming, right. It's in our future. So Dr. Williams, you are no stranger to service to Grenada, a career diplomat, represented Grenada highly at home, abroad, served really all the administrations of government. So this, in essence, is continued service from you. As you stood this morning and you took the oath, really, how does it feel?
Thank you. I felt I'm standing on shoulders, and I don't say this in any trite or repetitive way. I feel that there are so many women, so many people who have served, who could serve, and I just feel very privileged to be the one to be in this particular post, knowing that it's teamwork. Those who went before, those who are going to be in the current team. And I'm particularly interested in inspiring young girls. So I'm standing on shoulders, and I pray that others will stand on my shoulder. That's really my sentiment.
Oh, yes. Many of us are inspired by you, just so you are aware. So, yes, indeed. And yeah.
Yes. In terms of how do you feel going forward? And you just mentioned that you want to inspire girls. So what would your reign in the House be like in terms of what are you looking forward
I
to?
don't know. You don't know what your reign is going to be like. I would
What do
use
you
the word
hope for
reign.
rather?
But I do feel that the agenda
Mm.
and the process have to be aligned so that we can deliver a better Grenada. That's the thing that inspires me, and I want the legislative agenda to work towards accomplish that. On a day like today that feels very festive, I nonetheless want to remember yesterday I deliberately walked through Grenville and tried to take the temperature. Too much poor people,
Yeah.